Hello, I'm Jill at engVid, and today we have a lesson on a pronunciation issue um, with two sounds which are rather similar but slightly different from each other, which are ch and sh. Okay, so ch spelt ch and sh spelt sh. Okay, so we're going to be looking at some words for me to read aloud and for you to repeat after me, and then we'll have some sentences containing some of those words. So first of all, just to say that to get these words sounding different is important sometimes because it avoids confusion. Sometimes you get two words that are very similar and people can misunderstand. So we'll see that when we get to the examples. But just to give you a little hint about how to shape your mouth, if you see me saying ch, ch, ch and sh, 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 it looks very similar from the outside, how you see me shaping my mouth, ch, 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 ch. It looks exactly the same actually, but it's what's happening inside the mouth that's different. So if you imagine this is my mouth and this is my tongue, okay, and this is the roof of your mouth here, and here are your teeth at the front of your mouth. So with the tongue, when I do ch, 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 I've got the tip of my tongue touching the roof of my mouth. And when I change from ch, 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 to the vowel sound that follows it, it's ch, ch. So I pull my tongue back down away from the roof of my mouth when I do that. And it's sort of part way back here. Okay, so ch, 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 ch. Okay, you might like to just give that a try. Ch, ch, ch. And if English isn't your native language, if you have another language as your native language, if you have the sound ch in your own language, then probably it's not a problem. It's only when you don't have the sound ch in your native language, that's when it's more difficult to learn to make the sound. But just in case, that's why I'm demonstrating ch, 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 ch. And it's quite short as well. You can't make a prolonged ch, ch. It's not very easy to make it a long sound, but the difference is with sh, you can make a long sh. You can make it as long as your breath will allow it, really. So, but that's because when you do the sh sound, your tongue doesn't touch the roof of your mouth. You're allowing a little space between your tongue and the roof of your mouth. And then the air is coming up from your lungs, through your throat, and into your mouth and out in a continuous stream. And that's how it's possible to make a long sound with sh. And you just keep your tongue in one position. It's not like ch, 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 and your tongue's moving away. It's just in one position with a gap. Okay, so that's the difference for sort of physically with the placement of your tongue. If people want, if you're in a library, in the old days in a public library, there used to be a big sign up that said silence, and people had to be quiet because everyone was reading and needed to concentrate. I think libraries are less like that nowadays. But anyway, if you're somewhere, maybe at a concert or something, classical concert, and everyone's very respectful and they're listening very carefully to the music, or if people are watching a film in the cinema, you don't want people chatting all around you. So some people might say, shh, 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 I'm trying to listen to the film, shh. So again, if in your native language, people may not do that. Shh, 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 shh. I don't know how many countries that's the usual thing, to tell someone to stop making a noise, but that's a connection for shh. And then with ch, 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 ch. Maybe all I can think of is the way children play at play at trains, ch, 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 ch. And it's the sort of old-fashioned kind of trains that we used to have with steam coming out, ch, 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 and with the wheels going round like this, ch, 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 ch. So I don't know how familiar that might be to younger people now, but maybe children still play at trains and make that sort of sound. Ch, 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 ch. So that's the only connection I can think of, really. But anyway, let's have a look at some real examples. Okay, so what we have here is we have the two sounds at the top, ch and sh, and then we have pairs of words, and each pair are almost exactly the same, apart from the only difference is the ch and the sh. And sometimes they look very similar because of the spelling, but other times, because English spelling is a bit strange, it's not phonetic. So you have something like chair and share, and you can see that the spelling's different, but the pronunciation is the same. So don't worry about that. But it is, I know it's a bit confusing to have different spellings, but these words are the same vowel sound. The only difference is that the ch and the sh, are the difference. So chair and share. So that's the first one. So perhaps you'd like to say these words after me. Chair, ch, ch, ch. So this is ch, 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 ch. Chair, chair, chair. Okay. And then we've got sh, sh, where you keep your tongue away from the roof of your mouth. Sh, share, share, share. Okay, if you want to repeat that after me, share. Okay then, so let's just go on to the next pair of words. So we have chatter and shatter. So ch, 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 chatter, chatter, and then sh, 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 shatter, shatter. Okay, so chatter, that's a word about, people talking a lot. Chatter, chatter, chatter. It's a sort of imitates the sound of people talking. Chatter, 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 like that. And shatter also imitates a sound. If you break a window, something like that, the window was shattered. It sounds like a window breaking, or it sounds like a glass breaking. So chatter and shatter. If you want to say after me, ch, 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 chatter, chatter. And then sh, 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 shatter, shatter. Okay, right, so let's go on. Next pair. So cheap and sheep. Ch, 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 cheap, cheap, and sheep, sheep. So say after me, cheap and sheep. Okay, good. And the next one, cheat, sheet, cheat, cheat, and sheet, sheet. So after me, cheat, cheat, and sheet, sheet. Okay, next one. So cheer, sheer, cheer, 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 sheer, sheer. Okay. So cheer is when people are at a football match, something like that, and they're cheering because their team scored a goal. Cheer, yay, that sort of thing, cheer. And then sheer is either when it's sort of an intensifier kind of word, a sheer stroke of luck or something. That was sheer luck. That was absolute luck. Or sheer can also be like a sort of transparent piece of material, okay, that you can see through. It's sheer, or very thin and transparent. Okay, so let's just, if you want to say those words after me, cheer and sheer. Right, then going on, cherry, cherry, and sherry, sherry. Okay, good, and if just say them after me each time. So here we've got a completely different spelling. We've got chew and shoe. So to chew is when you chew, or if you think of a dog, I always think of a dog, the way dogs like to chew. If they get hold of a shoe, they like to chew the shoe. So chew, shoe. Okay, after me, chew, shoe. Right, next one. Again, different spelling. Chief, after me, chief, sheaf, sheaf. So chief meaning a boss, the head of something, and sheaf either in harvest time people cut the crops and then they put them all together in a big bunch. Or you could have a lot of papers in your hand and you can call it a sheaf of papers. So it's when you've got a lot of things gathered together, a sheaf. Okay, so after me, chief and sheaf. Okay, right. Next pair. Chili, chili, and shilly, shilly. Okay. So chilly, if it's a chilly day, it's a bit cold, chilly. Shilly, that's part of an expression that when we've got some sentences later, so it will become clearer when we get to the sentences, rather than me try to explain it in isolation here. Okay, so we'll come back to that. Right, so the next pair, chin here, that's the chin, and shin, that's another part of the body, which is, it's on your leg below your knee, your shin, the bone at the below your knee, the shin. So that just shows how, you know, to avoid any confusion. If you say to the doctor, I've hurt my chin, or I've hurt my shin, the doctor needs to know which part of the body you're talking about. So this is where misunderstandings can come up. It's a good example of that, because they're both parts of the body. So chin and shin. Okay, right. And the next pair, China, China, and China, China. So China, it's either, well, the name of the country, if it has a capital C, the country, China, but it can also mean the, if you have a nice cup and saucer, plates made of china, it's a nice sort of material, nice quality material for your cup of tea, to put your tea in, to drink from. Okay, and china, well, it's a slightly colloquial word, a slang word. If someone gets a black eye, if someone's punched them in the eye, and it goes black from being bruised, it's called a shiner. So someone might say, oh, you've got a bit of a shiner there. How did that happen? So that's a shiner. And again, you can see the spelling is slightly different between the two. Right, next pair. So we've got chip, and ship. Okay, after me, chip, ship. Right, next pair, choose, and shoes, okay. Next, chop. So when you're chopping vegetables, that sort of thing, chop, like that. It's almost imitating the sound, like, again, isn't it? Chop. And shop. Okay, good. Next pair, chopper, and shopper. So a chopper could be the tool that you chop with, a chopper. It's also a word for a helicopter, you know, the helicopter with the revolving, whatever they're called, revolving something that makes it lift off the ground. That's called a chopper as well, because of the way it goes round. So chopper is a sort of slang word or colloquial word for a helicopter. And so we've got chopper and shopper. Okay, right, next pair. Chore, and shore. Okay. So a chore is a job you have to do that you don't really want to do. Things like housework, doing the dusting, mopping the floor, all that sort of thing. They're chores, household chores, very boring. You have to do them. you know, every week or whatever. Oh dear, so boring. Boring chores. So it's the same vowel sound. Chore, chore, shore, shore. So that's like at the seaside, the seashore, where the land meets the sea. That's the shore. Okay. And then finally, we have chose, chose. So that's the past tense of choose. Yesterday I chose and some new carpet, something like that. Chose. And shows, shows. So shows, of course, is present tense of the verb to show. So, and third person singular. So they're both verbs here, but one is in the past tense, one is present tense. So chose, shows. Okay, good. Well done. So let's go on now then, and let's have a look at some sentences with these pairs of words in them, just for fun. Okay. So the first sentence, I'll say it first, and then I'll leave a space for you to repeat it after me. Okay, so here's the first one. Buying a flock of sheep isn't cheap. Okay, just once more. Buying a flock of sheep isn't cheap. Okay, good. So flock, that's the word, the collective word for a lot of sheep, a flock of sheep. Okay, a crowd of, a group of sheep, it's a flock. Okay, good. And the next sentence, the shopper arrived in a chopper. So someone going shopping in a helicopter, which sounds a bit unusual. I think they must be very rich to be able to do that. But anyway, the shopper arrived in a chopper. So your turn. Good. Right. And then here's the next one. So this is where we've got shilly. So it's the full term is shilly shally. It's when people can't decide what to do. They shilly shally, shally shilly. You know, shall I do this or shall I do that? That's where it comes from, actually. Shall I? Shilly, shall I or not? So shilly shally comes from that. Shall I? So I'll just read the sentence. It's too chilly to shilly shally. So your turn. And just once more, it's too chilly to shilly shally. Okay. Okay, good. And the next one, here's the dog with the shoes. My dog loves to chew shoes. Your turn. My dog loves to chew shoes. Okay. Okay. Next one. So somebody has an accident shaving. Okay, with a razor. He cut his chin shaving. Then a dog bit his shin. That's on his leg. Okay, so your turn. I'll just do it once more. He cut his chin shaving, then a dog bit his shin. Again. Good. Next sentence. They shattered the peace with their chatter. So although I said earlier, shatter is to do with breaking glass usually, but it can be used metaphorically. If you shatter the piece, it means you're breaking the nice quiet. You're disturbing the quiet with a lot of noise. So you can use it as a metaphor in this way. So they shattered the peace with their chatter. Your turn. So just once more. They shattered the peace with their chatter. Good. And then finally, so there's a cherry in my sherry. So you've got a glass of sherry, a drink, and there's a cherry, a little piece of fruit in it. So there's a cherry in my sherry. Your turn. Once more, there's a cherry in my sherry. Your turn again. Okay, good. Okay, so what I'm going to do just to end with, I'm just going to go through the list of words once more, and I'm not going to emphasize them quite so much this time. I'm just going to say them in a normal way, in a sort of quick, normal way, as any speaker would say them in normal circumstances, in a normal situation. Okay, so just listen out for the difference again from ch and sh as I go through them. Okay, here we go. So chair, share, chatter, shatter, cheap, sheep, cheat, sheet, cheer, sheer, cherry, sherry, chew, shoe, chief, sheaf, chilly, shilly, chin, shin, china, shiner, chip, ship, choose, shoes, chop, shop, chopper, shopper, chore, shore, chose, shows. Okay, so I hope that's been a useful exercise for you. In case you were having any difficulty making the difference. And as I say, the main point is when you get words like this that sound very similar, to be able to make the difference so that people don't misunderstand, and so that you avoid confusion whenever you're telling anybody anything. Okay, so that's the end of the lesson for today. I hope you found it useful, and hope to see you again soon. All right. Okay then. Bye for now then. Bye-bye.